Home Alone Stories. First story. It started on the first night Temur moved into his new apartment. A quiet place on the edge of the city. The kind of building where the neighbors kept to themselves and nobody asked questions. He liked it that way. It felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. But that first night, as the clock passed midnight, and he lay half awake in bed, there was a knock at his door. 3 sharp knocks, not loud, not aggressive, just steady. Measured, he sat up, staring toward the front door. Who would be knocking? At this hour? He checked the time, 12:17 a.m. He waited, heart thumping. Maybe he imagined it. But then came another knock. 3 again, same pace, same calm rhythm. He got up and walked slowly to the peephole. No one was there. The hallway was empty. Still, something felt wrong. He double-checked the locks and tried to shake it off. Just nerves, he told himself. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same 3 knocks. This time, he didn't move from the bed. He waited, straining his ears. After a few minutes, the knocking stopped. On the third night, he stayed up, sitting on his couch facing the door. He kept the lights on, and his phone in hand. When the clock hit 12:17, the knocking returned. Exactly 3 knocks. Temur crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Again, no one was there. But this time, something was different. A dark shadow stretched along the hallway floor, as if someone was standing there, just out of view. He felt a cold draft seep through the cracks in the door, and his breath came out in a faint cloud. He didn't open the door. He waited. Minutes passed. No more knocks. By the 4th night, he was exhausted, but too afraid to sleep. He set up his phone to record the hallway through the peephole. He didn't watch the door that night. He waited in the corner of the room, barely breathing. At 12:17, the knocking came again. 3 times, slow and deliberate. He didn't move. He didn't answer. But this time, there was something else. After the knocking stopped, he heard a voice, whispering through the door. "Temur, let me in." It was faint, like a voice carried on wind, but it was there. His name. He never told anyone he lived there. No one knew. He backed further into the corner and sat there until dawn. The next morning, he checked the recording. It showed the hallway as empty, but the knocking sound was clear. And after the knocks, the voice whispered his name. But the voice wasn't coming from outside the door. It was coming from inside the apartment. He moved out the next day, throwing his things into boxes without caring what he left behind. He found a new apartment across town, somewhere busy and crowded, somewhere noisy. For a while, things were quiet. He convinced himself it was over. But 2 weeks later, on a rainy night, he woke up to a knock at his door. He froze in bed, listening. 3 knocks, slow, steady. It was 12:17 a.m. He gathered the courage to approach the door, but there was no peephole in this new place. He leaned his ear close instead, listening. Nothing but silence. Then the knock came again. On the window behind him, he spun around. The apartment was on the 10th floor. No balcony, no ledge. Just sheer glass and air. But the knocks continued. 3, soft and deliberate, right at the glass. And then he heard the voice again. "Temur, let me in." He ran from the apartment that night and never went back. He stayed in different places, hotels, friends, houses, but no matter where he went, it followed him. The knock always came after. Midnight always 3 times, always at 12:17. and always followed by the same whisper, calm and patient, waiting for him to open the door. Some say if you hear a knock after midnight, never answer. Never look outside, because it isn't someone who needs help. It isn't a neighbor or a lost stranger. It's something else, and once you hear it knock, it already knows where you live. Second story. Aisha had just moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. It wasn't perfect tiled floors that creaked with every step and pipes that groaned late at night, but it was hers. The living room had one large window, covered by thick curtains the color of dried blood. She never thought much about them until the first night she noticed something strange. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, when she realized the curtain wasn't hanging right. One side bulged slightly, as if something was behind it. She stared at it for a moment, holding her breath. Probably a draft, she thought. Or maybe she hadn't tucked it in properly after opening the window earlier. But she hadn't opened the window, not once, since she moved in. The bulge shifted, just slightly, enough to make her heart race. She stood, grabbed a flashlight, and walked toward the curtain. Her hand trembled as she reached for the fabric. In one swift motion, she yanked it back. Nothing there. The window was closed, locked. The night outside was empty. She laughed nervously and told herself it was the wind, the old building settling. She went to bed, trying to forget it. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same slow bulge in the curtain. She watched it for an hour, refusing to get up. Finally, it stopped. She left the curtain open that night, letting the faint glow from the streetlights spill into the room. No shadows, no shapes. But when she woke up the next morning, the curtain was closed. She was sure she hadn't touched it. She stood there, staring at it, her stomach knotting tighter and tighter. She checked the lock on the window again. It was still sealed shut. The third night was different. She heard breathing, soft at first, like someone asleep. But it wasn't coming from her bedroom. It was coming from the living room. She lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, too afraid to move. Then she heard a faint shuffle, a slow drag, like feet sliding across the old wooden floor. She forced herself to get up and creep toward the living room, phone in hand, ready to call someone, anyone. The curtain was swaying gently. She shone the phone's flashlight toward it. The shape was there again, but clearer this time. It was a figure, tall, thin, pressed close against the fabric. She could make out the faint curve of a head, shoulders, a hand. Then the hand pushed against the curtain, fingers spreading wide, the thin material stretching under the pressure. 5 long fingers, pale even in the dark. Her scream caught in her throat. She backed away slowly, but the hand slid down, dragging along the curtain, leaving a faint dark smear behind it. Aisha ran to the door. It wouldn't open. The locks wouldn't budge. She fumbled with the keys, her hands slick with sweat, but it was like something on the other side was holding it shut. When she turned back, the curtain was wide open. The figure stood there, not outside the window, but inside the room. It was tall, its skin pale and stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were black, sunken, endless. The grin on its face was wide and unnatural, cutting too deep into its cheeks. It tilted its head at her, as if curious. She bolted to the bedroom, slammed the door, and locked it. She huddled in the corner, whispering to herself that it wasn't real. But she could hear it. Footsteps, slow, heavy. It stopped outside her door. Then came knock. soft, patient. "Aisha," a voice whispered. "Let me back behind the curtain." She didn't answer. She didn't move. She waited until morning. When she finally opened the door, the apartment was empty. The curtain hung perfectly still, no sign of anyone ever being there. She left that day, never looking back. The next tenant didn't last long either. They said they saw someone watching them from behind the curtain, even when the window was closed. Some say the figure waits there, behind old curtains in forgotten rooms, watching through thin fabric, waiting for someone to notice it. And once you do, it follows you. No matter where you go, there's always another curtain. Third story. The first time Kamran heard it, he thought it was just the neighbors. His new apartment was in an old building, one of those places where the walls seemed too thin and every sound bled through. Late one night, as he sat at his desk, working, he heard a faint whisper. It was muffled, like someone speaking through a thick wall. He pressed his ear against the cracked plaster. The voice was soft, broken words slipping through like wind. "Help me," it whispered. "Let me out." Kamran pulled back quickly, his skin prickling. He laughed it off. Just his imagination. Stress, sleep deprivation. He went back to his work, but the whispers came again. This time, closer. "Kamran," it said. "You can hear me." His fingers froze on the keyboard. He hadn't told anyone he moved into this apartment yet. No one should know his name. The next night, it was louder. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling when the walls began to creak softly. Then came the voices. More than one this time. Dozens, maybe. Some crying. Some whispering frantically. Others calling out his name again and again. He punched the wall. "Shut up," he shouted. For a moment, silence. Then, a soft laugh, right beside his ear. In the morning, he noticed something strange. Cracks had begun to form in the walls. Long, thin lines snaking across the plaster like veins. He touched them, and they felt warm, pulsing faintly under his fingertips. He told himself he was imagining it, but every night the voices grew bolder. They no longer whispered, they screamed, pleading for help, begging to be freed. Sometimes they threatened, sometimes they cried, and sometimes they laughed, hollow and cold. One night, Kamran decided he'd had enough. He grabbed a hammer and smashed it into the wall where the voices were loudest. The plaster cracked icily, crumbling away like dust. Behind it, he expected to find pipes, insulation, something normal instead. He found an eye. It was large, pale, and it blinked slowly at him from inside the wall. He stumbled back, dropping the hammer. The eye stared, unblinking now, as the voices around him roared into a deafening scream. The walls began to bulge. Hands pressed against them from inside, their fingers clawing and dragging through the thin plaster. Nails scraped deep, leaving long gouges in the surface as if something was trying to tear its way through. Kamran ran to the door, but it wouldn't open. He threw his shoulder against it, again and again. The walls cracked further, and more eyes opened within them. Wide, watching, judging. A mouth formed near the ceiling, stretching impossibly wide. It spoke in 1,000 voices, layered on top of one another. "You let us out." The door finally gave way, and Kamran stumbled into the hallway. But it was wrong. The hallway stretched too far, the lights flickering endlessly into darkness. He turned back to his apartment, but it was gone. Just a smooth wall where his door used to be. And the voices, they were still there, whispering in every direction now. He ran down the hallway, through stairwells, across floors that twisted. Under his feet, the building had changed. It wasn't a building anymore. It was alive. Cameron was never seen again. The landlord told the next tenant that the apartment was empty, that no one had lived there for years. But at night, if you press your ear to the walls, you can hear them. The voices, some begging for help, some calling your name, and some just waiting for you to listen.